Well, not surprisingly, there's a lot of blood and violence and gore in this film. And it kind of happens throughout the film. It's spread quite heavily throughout the film. It does increase towards the end, but there's a lot of blood, a lot of violence. And some of the ways that zombies are attacked or do they're attacking, they kind of, some of them are creative, but most of it's very much in keeping with what you'd expect from the genre. So you see characters, and I'm talking about the zombie characters as well as people, as well as animals, being kind of attacked in different ways. And you see the regular sort of stuff where people are kind of kicked and punched and wrestled and tackled and all that kind of stuff. But then you see the actual sort of killings happen where characters are dismembered and decapitated, attacked with hardware tools and things like that. You see one zombie being glassed and all kind of creative ways. You know, any object to hand, if you like, is used in order to attack these zombies. You do see an animal being hit by a car. When you see the corpse of the animal lying on the road, the stomach has all been split open, and you see the entrails and the guts and kind of bleeding, oozing from the corpse. You also see an animal being stabbed in the eyeball, and when this happens, you see it quite in close up, and you actually see the object being removed from the very jelly kind of flesh of the eyeball. That again is in close up. Another close up scene of gore is an object is kind of like blasted through a head, and this again is in close up and it's in slow motion. So you see the head kind of break apart and explode pretty much, and blood and gore and matter flies everywhere. As I said, there's, people are kind of, with all these different injuries, there's a lot of blood. So people are covered in blood through the film. And you see, bloody faces and heads and hands and clothing and everything. You do see a body lying on a kind of like what looks like a hospital or an experiment kind of table at one point. When a character tries to give this body CPR, the hands go straight through the chest. So you see this chest kind of broken open and all kind of blood and again matter. You see very bloody teeth. And mouths and things like that. There's one scene when one character is kind of covered in pouring blood. This blood is pouring out and basically dousing this other character. So yeah, a lot of violence, and there's shooting violence as well as like hacking and all kinds of stuff, and bow and arrow kind of things and stuff like that. But a lot of it, even though it is very violent, this is also almost a parody film, so it's meant to be somewhat comic. While it could be squeamish, most of it is meant to be entertaining and comic rather than disturbing or distressing violence. There are a few scenes of nudity and sex in the film. There's one scene of oral sex. There's some kissing in the film between male and female characters as well as two females. And you see a fair bit of nudity in the film, or a moderate amount of nudity. There's a strip club scene when a stripper comes out and starts doing a pole dancing maneuver, and she is almost completely nude. You see her from the front. She's just wearing a tiny little G-string, but apart from that, you pretty much see everything else. You also see another scene when a woman has her breasts exposed, and these breasts are kind of also played with and fondled. You see a woman having her bottom slapped. There's also sexual references and a bit of sexual banter throughout the film as well, and the idea of crushes, and one guy has a crush on another character, so there's that sort of teen angst regarding sex as well. In terms of alcohol and drug use, there isn't actually any drug use in the film. You do hear someone says dropping acid at one point, it's just mentioned. And for alcohol, you see some teen boys buying some beer. Well, actually the beer is bought for them. You later see them drinking bottles of beer. And in the strip club scene, you see shelves behind the bar which are lined with bottles of alcohol. It looks like they're mostly spirits, but you don't really see anyone kind of drinking that. And there's a teen seniors age, or school seniors age club party kind of rave scene which happens, and you see these kids holding red cups which you assume has alcohol in it, but you don't really see what it is that they're actually drinking. There's a fair bit of swearing in the film. There is, the F word is used quite liberally, as well as S words and bitch. There's some derogatory terms for women. There's obscene hand and finger gestures. There's also a lot of slang terms for genitals and various bodily fluids and functions and that kind of thing. Where the kind of, I guess, the nudity and the violence comes together in one scene, that you see a man holding on to another man's penis, and his genitals get pulled beyond their limits, let's say. And again, this scene is quite drawn out. It's in close up, so you see the skin stretching and tearing apart, so you see the tissue kind of coming apart and that kind of thing. And then you see, this penis being thrown around and toyed with a little bit, and ending up in another character. Just watch the film. Okay, so let's just give you a good idea of kind of the overall violence and blood in the film. If you do watch it, be sure to stick around. There is a scene in the middle of the end credits as well, which involves one character who, through the film, he's kind of, was tied up at one point and is burned alive. I don't know, can you be alive if you're undead? And through the film, you see his body looking more charred and smoked and kind of steaming at different times. You also see him, I think, being hit by a car and that kind of thing. Okay, so A Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse is directed by Christopher Landon and stars a small ensemble cast led by Ty Sheridan and Sarah Dumont. You can read my full breakdown of the violence contained in the film on my website, cinemum.net.